Okay, so let's talk about something that's so often misunderstood and honestly rarely talked about with any real compassion. And that's the link between borderline personality disorder and hypersexuality. We're going to look at this not as some kind of character flaw, but for what it really is, a painful survival mechanism. And most importantly, we're going to map out a path toward real understanding and healing.
Just let that sink in for a second. What if? This question, it just gets right to the very heart of that internal conflict, doesn't it? It's this incredibly powerful pull between a desperate need for relief and the absolutely devastating consequences that you know are going to follow. It's a battle that so many people are fighting completely in silence.
All right, let's start by totally reframing this, because this first step is absolutely critical. When we're talking about hypersexuality in the context of BPD, you got to understand this is rarely about just a high sex drive. It's not. It's an act of pure survival, and it's driven by a level of emotional pain that is just almost unbearable.
And this definition right here, it's everything, because it shifts the focus entirely. You see, it's not about pleasure. It's a coping mechanism. It is a desperate, frantic attempt to feel wanted, to feel alive, to prove to yourself, hey, I matter, even if it's only for a split second. It's about filling this profound, gaping void that honestly feels like it could just swallow you whole.
But here's the trap, and it's a big one. This coping mechanism, this temporary fix, it creates this incredibly powerful self-perpetuating loop, you know? It promises relief, but what it actually delivers is even deeper pain. And that's what makes it feel so impossible to escape. So let's break down exactly how this vicious cycle works.
So it all kicks off with a trigger, right? That all too familiar feeling of being left or ignored or just unseen. And that just ignites this unbearable emptiness inside, this desperate urge to do anything to make it stop. So that leads to the act, which for a moment gives you some numbness. But then comes the crash. A huge, overwhelming wave of shame and self-hatred just hits you like a ton of bricks. And here's the absolute cruelest part of it all. That feeling of shame, that becomes the trigger that starts the whole cycle all over again. Let's make this really real for a second. Picture this. It's late at night. The silence in your apartment is just deafening. So you send that text. And when they arrive, their attention, their touch, it literally feels like oxygen after holding your breath for way too long. And for just a little while, you feel seen. You feel wanted. You feel whole. You feel like, okay, I'm finally enough. But then comes the turning point. The door closes. The car drives away. And just like that, you're alone again. That temporary connection is just gone. And that silence, it screams louder than ever. And it's filled with all that self-blame. Why did I do that again? You're asking yourself that, feeling so used, even though you were the one who initiated it. And listen, this is so important. This is not a moment of weakness. It's your brain screaming, absolutely screaming for survival in the only way it knows how.
Okay, so let's pivot a little and dig into the psychology behind this to see how it all builds up. Because really understanding why this urge is so powerful, that's the key to destigmatizing it. These aren't just random impulses coming out of nowhere. No, they're deeply rooted in the core features of BPD.
I want you to think of these things not as separate issues, but as like a perfect storm, right? You've got that core fear of abandonment, which makes sex feel like a tool, a way to keep someone close. Then you have the desperate need for validation, which gets met instantly. The intense highs, they can actually feel really familiar, kind of mirroring the emotional roller coaster of BPD itself. And for a lot of people, this is also tied to past trauma. It's a way to either numb that pain or unconsciously reenact it. So when that emotional crisis hits, bam, impulsivity grabs the steering wheel and just shuts down all logical thinking.
And this right here, this just lays out the core conflict so perfectly. On the surface, the impulse is screaming, I want sex, I need intensity. But if you listen closely, the deeper emotion underneath is whispering, or maybe even screaming, I want connection. I need to feel alive. I just need to know that I matter. The action and the real need are just tragically mismatched.
Okay, so we've walked through the cycle, we've looked at the psychology behind it. Now let's shift gears to what is, without a doubt, the most important part of this whole conversation, hope. Because this cycle is not a life sentence. It can absolutely be broken. It takes awareness, yeah, it takes courage, and it takes a whole new set of tools.
So here's a practical toolkit for that journey. Step 1, and this is maybe the most crucial of all, create a pause. Just a tiny moment to ask yourself, what do I truly need right now? Step 2, find a new outlet for all that intense energy. Exercise, journaling, blasting music. Step 3, find safer ways to get that validation you're craving. Call a friend you trust. Use some self-affirming statements. Step 4, start using proven skills from therapies like DBT, that's dialectical behavior therapy, to learn how to actually tolerate distress without having to act on it. Step 5 is all about building real intimacy, letting connection grow emotionally first, not just physically. And finally, the one that holds it all together, replace that vicious cycle of self-hate with radical self-compassion. You have to remember, you were just surviving. Now it's time to learn how to thrive.
So what does this actually look like in the moment? Okay, imagine it. That urge hits, and it hits hard. But this time, instead of grabbing your phone to send that text, you make a different choice. You open your notes app, and you just write it down. You name the feeling, I feel rejected. And then you make a conscious choice. I am choosing to ride this wave. It might seem like a small thing, but that tiny act of redirection, it is absolutely monumental. That's you taking your power back.
And this really brings us to the ultimate goal here, because breaking the cycle isn't just about stopping a behavior. It goes so much deeper than that. It's about fundamentally changing your entire relationship with yourself. It's about learning how to heal that deep, profound sense of emptiness from the inside out.
And I want to be crystal clear about something. The goal of healing is not to shut yourself off from intimacy or desire. Not at all. The goal is to build a new kind of intimacy, one that's safe and nurturing and sustainable. It's about finding connection in places that actually build you up instead of tearing you down.
So I guess this is the question I want to leave you with. What we've been talking about, hypersexuality and BPD, it's a deeply painful and very human response to overwhelming pain. That temporary fix, it's never going to heal the emptiness. The only thing that will is learning to face it, to soothe it, and to love yourself right through it. The choice ultimately is yours. So are you going to let the emptiness keep deciding for you, or are you ready to choose healing?